Iggy's Reckin Balls may quite possibly be the most 90s video game in all of existence. That specific combination of being gross to look at on purpose, to be rebellious, having grungy but still funky music, and the character designs really emanate that energy of that collectible toy that barely anyone outside of the generation remembers. Those little pieces of plastic that look like crap but still somehow manage to scream, "Collect them all now!" Kind of like Crazy Bones, or Monster in My Pocket. Anyone remember those? Just that this one's gimmick is that all the characters are shaped like a ball and chain. Even the menu announcer is one dude away from being the most aggressively 90s voice imaginable.
Who's it gonna be? What's your game, dude? Where to? Time trial.
This literally colorful assortment of characters even comes with a handful of quirky catchphrases, such as
Victory for the Big Kahuna! A most honorable victory.
Even the level names got that 90s attitude. Jump@end.com. Heard of emails, kids? What's also really 90s is the fact that it's a game that mechanically fawns over the fact that the 5th generation of gaming's got analog stick controls now. Perhaps a blank point when this is 2 years after the N64's already existed, but it's the enthusiasm that counts. It has this Bionic Commando-inspired chain grappling mechanic where you can extend a grappling chain to latch onto platforms. A pretty decent move to base an entire platformer around, but oh, what's this? Yeah, it is the 90s, which means kart races were the hot new thing. You race a handful of enemies, often having to share a platforming track with them as a way of forcing you to interact with each other. This ups the danger, of course, since you'll be shoving each other around, yanking each other off the stage in comedic fashion. It's an idea I'm surprised doesn't come up more often in games, making a cross between a platformer and a racing game, like competitive speedrunning. A concept that just becomes even more hilarious when you're trying to sabotage each other. This game also has a boost button to give you a major burst in speed. You get 4 boosts per lap, so there's a lot of emphasis on learning the level layouts, finding which moments are best to save your boosts for. A lot of levels have more focus on verticality, but that doesn't mean you still can't find ways to cover ground faster with it. You do have to be careful with where you swing and boost yourself though, as this is a 2.5D platformer, so missing a jump or careening off the edge can set you back quite a bit, especially if you fall off and level geometry catches you instead of not Lakitu. It's such a simple set of mechanics, but it does wonders to set itself as a game with a lot of focus on skill expression. It's a lot of fun to blow past the levels you've learned the layout of and blast past the competition, all the while styling on your opponents. This game has a few stop-and-go moments, but it works out as it creates opportunities to really screw your enemies over, grabbing and stunning them at just the right moment so they miss a moving platform. I do think there could have been more platforms that simply moved on the moment you touch them, rather than strictly moving on a cycle. Because it's happened more than once and I've just had to sit there because I managed to reach a spot as a platform was leaving. This way could have added a lot more smell you later type moments when you slam a guy into the ground and hop on the platform, leaving them in the dust, rather than just getting into fights at the bus stop. Could also do with a lot less automated sections where none of your input matters. The Grand Prix have way too many levels, maxing out at 10 each. Individual tracks get to be so long that you're eventually looking at a 20 to 30 minute commitment per GP, when I feel like this game could have been more digestible in bite-sized chunks. Regardless, it's a very solid foundation for a high skill ceiling racer, where the emphasis is on memorizing the track layouts and dunking on your competition. So, it's a little bit of a shame that it's one of those games where one mechanic falls short and the whole thing falls apart. The title takes a page from Mario 64 and has item pickups. Items aren't an inherently bad addition, just this game's items aren't very good. See, the idea behind items in a more traditional kart racer is that they're meant to be the great equalizer, the way to close the gap between each racer, either by giving them a boost or slowing down their opponents. They're usually balanced around that idea, players in the back of the pack getting better items while head racers aren't pulling anything all that great. Iggy's Reckin Balls decides that's for normies, I guess, and what you end up with is an item system that just derails the fun part of the game. Out goes the fun skill expression, and in comes getting screwed over by random chance and sometimes undodgeable projectiles. This stings a lot less than Mario Kart because when you're trying to do cool shortcuts but a red or blue shell interrupts you, you still have the easy to follow main track to fall back on. As opposed to Reckin Balls where the main obstacles are difficult platforming challenges, so getting blue shell in this game makes you start that over. Or, worst case scenario, an asshole placed a trap at the end of the automated sections, meaning you can't dodge getting flung back to the beginning of it, no matter how long it is. You know how in Mario Kart 64 being at the back of the pack will grant you better items like golden mushrooms, power stars, or lightning? While it's still weighted in this game, being in first still means you can get the good items like a refill on your boost meter. Meanwhile, I'll be in last place and get handed bombs, which can only be placed behind you. Like, yeah, real helpful. Or even the blue energy balls, which will only loop around one layer of track, something that would be sound as a trap. But when you're trying to play catch-up, they're just an outright detriment, since you're just creating another obstacle for yourself and you can't boost past them. But you have to get rid of them since the item takes up your boost button. It sucks even more because on most tracks there's only one set of item bubbles to pop, which means you only get one shot at a good item per lap. And most of the catch-up items aren't even that good. The power star in this one giving a very small speed boost at best, and even then maybe that's placebo talking. The biggest feature of it is that it allows you to pass through platforms that are normally impassable. The rest are nowhere near as great. The shrinking item slows everyone down for like a second. And of course, the red and gold lightning balls only do so much to stop the competition that's already way ahead. The gold lightning isn't really a true spiny shell. It pesters everyone on the way to the first, which is a plus. But oftentimes it just ignores this and just pesters the guy in front of you for a few seconds instead. Which creates situations where I'm in third place, falling deeper and deeper behind because I have a perfectly homing sphere interrupting my platforming. It just ends up creating this environment where falling behind early means it's an uphill battle to get caught up with everybody else. This combined with the biblically accurate platformer levels that the game later turns into just makes it frustrating. Plus the game devolves into rather annoying level gimmicks, like these fans that barely work, or the entirety of the deep, which just has huge towers where you can barely see which platforms are solid and which are passed through, something the CPU isn't impeded by the way. Once I saw the CPU just straight up cheat and skip to the end, like, what the hell. It's just a shame because then the best version of the game is in the time trials, but even by then, it's just a 2.5D platformer with a neat gimmick, but it outstays its welcome by having 100 levels. Seeing this just stinks for a game like this, where it's just an obscure little one-off game on the N64 and nothing else. Because I can see all the ways these problems could have been ironed out in a sequel. Balance out the items better, or maybe better yet in my opinion, just get rid of them completely and put a bigger focus on platforming skill. It would have been wonderful to see this game become one of the great racers just due to how unique it is, but sadly that wasn't meant to be. The developers, Iguana and Acclaim Entertainment, aren't even with this world anymore, and the game's yet to have been re-released to this day. From what I've seen, the IP is currently owned by Throwback Entertainment, but they still haven't done anything with it, let alone planning anything like a remake or sequel. A big bummer for a game like this with a lot of untapped potential. Of course, it's fine for one game to be one game and just have that be it. There's plenty of games that get what they want out there and have no need for a follow-up. But it's still a little sad to play a strange, very imperfect cult classic like this and imagine what could have been.